recording.
All right. So I guess to introduce, hello, could you introduce yourself, Miss Camps?
My name is Brittany Camps. I'm the Oregon Wellbeing Lead with Bluezones Project Jacksonville.
And here we're sort of talking about blues and values, and I'll be asking Miss Camps some questions that I feel like are really important for the audience, which is for this nonprofit Cardiology USA, which emphasizes Blue Zone and cardiology and sort of goes on to like speak about important things that I think are important for people to know about these two topics. So, without further ado, I guess Ms. Camp's first question is, what would be the most surprising way you've seen someone apply a Blue Zone value in a non-Blue Zone culture?
So, first, when we say non-Blue Zones culture, we want everyone to know that the values that Blue Zones Project has, we believe that the values, the methodologies could be used across different cultures, different communities. We know that the original Blue Zones were those 5 places that our founder saw the highest concentration of centenarians, and then he reverse engineered and brought those back to other communities in North America. So I just wanted to be very clear that when we talk about Blue Zones communities and Blue Zones cultures, that could be anywhere. However, based on those methodologies, one of the most, I don't know if you want to say surprising ways I've seen someone implement, but one of the most interesting ways I've actually seen someone implement Blue Zones principles when it comes to eating wisely. So eating wisely, 80% rule, plant slant, is just I've had a gentleman once who said that based on what he found out from Blue Zones Project Jacksonville, that he is only going to eat Blue Zones inspired meals. So he only eats at Blue Zones approved restaurants or go to Blue Zones approved grocery stores. So I just really thought that was surprising and very interesting that someone actually took on that task, and that was in our year one.
Wow, that's very impressive. Just curious though, what are the Blue Zone approved restaurants and grocery stores just for the people watching so we can go into some healthier?
Oh,
Sorry for
no
interrupting.
worries. So if you go to bluezonesprojectjacksonville.com, there is a list of all of our Blue Zones approved restaurants and grocery stores. Currently, we're actually rounding out our year two. So you'll actually start seeing actually more in the next few weeks. But for right now, in terms of Blue Zones approved restaurants, we have One Foxy Lady, Crave Vegan, European Street Cafe, all 3 locations, Blue Boy Sandwich Shop, Ice Capade Frozen Treats, and Plenty. And then for grocery stores right now, we have Farmery, Bakery, and Bodega, Premier Meats, but we do have other restaurants and grocery stores that are coming on board. Notably 3 restaurants, I mean 3 grocery stores. For the Corner Depths just became an approved grocery store. We're working with Clean Greens Mart, and we're also working with Durkeeville and Co. So always just check our website for the most up-to-date approved list.
Sounds good. So another question I have is how do you personally move naturally in your daily life without feeling like exercise? Since I feel like a lot of people generally don't want to make the time to go on an exercise due to like several things like work and typically how tired people are after work. So what do you think are some convenient ways to get more movement and exercise in without really having to make that super strong commitment?
Great question. And I love the move naturally concept. And I like to dance. I like to dance. I'm not the best dancer, but if you've ever just danced or listened to your favorite songs, you know how much of a sweat, you know how many calories you can actually burn. So for me, I move naturally by dancing. I also love to walk. Walking and talking I can do that for hours. However, to your point, traditional exercise, like going to the gym for me, doesn't work. But I think about when I was younger, I exercised a lot more because I was having fun doing things like playing kickball, playing volleyball, playing softball, running track, things that didn't seem like exercise, but they were definitely exercise and just having fun. So just having fun is the way I love to move naturally.
Do you think possibly like taking breaks during work or trying to like move around campus for the students would be something good or a recommended way?
I think so. I think moving naturally for anyone, whether it's work, whether it's school, whether it's just in their just daily life, is important. One of the things that we implement in our worksite pledge that employers can adapt is just nudging their employees to move um once at least once every 20 or 30 minutes. So that could be just getting up for 30 seconds to 2 minutes, or just standing up versus maybe just sitting down in a chair. So whether it's school or home or work, just actually doing some type of movement once an hour has significantly showed improvements for people's overall health and well-being.
All right. And how do you personally handle days when stress overrides your downshift, like, or downshifts your practices? Since, you will have very stressful days at times, and I can relate to this, especially as a student, and I bet it's even worse for the adults. How would you say you would like personally handle those days when, you are struggling to, conduct your practices for well-being that, you do?
Oh, so this is a great question. So I am a new mom. I've been a mom for almost a year. My daughter turns one on Monday. And before I became a parent, it was a little easier. But now since I've actually became a parent, it is harder. However, it is probably more needed. So a few things that I've actually tried to do to actually implement my de-stressing is a few things that has been helpful for me. On the way to work, I make sure I can get that podcast or that sermon or that just videos in, and I'll plug in my phone on my car and I'll listen to those. And that just kind of helps me to de-stress. If I have time, I go to movies. It might be the most randomest time, but if I have time, I just go. I don't care what's playing. I'll just go. Or if it's something that I have to just be at home, just reading a book. And I feel like when I'm intentional about it, if I intentionally try to do something, I build a habit and it's just easier to implement. But just always realizing it doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to cost a lot of time. When I first had my baby, one of the best advice I received was to go outside for 5 minutes every day. And I have adapted that practice, and going out for 5 minutes has helped tremendously.
That sounds good. I heard that you said that you try to get that like podcast, sermon, or book in. I actually relate to that a lot since when I'm on the bus for those like 30 minutes before I go to school, typically I'll just be able to plan my day while listening to some like music. So I like that strategy a lot. I feel like a lot of kids also do that nowadays too, especially on the bus because a lot of people have their AirPods in just listening to music because during the on the bus, like when we're leaving and when we're getting to school.
No, I can relate to that. So, I mean, we didn't have AirPods when I was in school. Um, however, so like having our tape player or our CD player, being able to listen to songs, I just remember like listening to certain songs before like a track meet, to kind of get in the groove or the zone. So, yeah.
And now I'm curious for you, what are your traditions that you've built in your own life that align with Blue Zone values, just coming from someone who actually works with Blue Zone yourself?
So one thing I was able to do is kind of get my husband as well as my mother-in-law really just involved with this, which I think has made it easier to do some things. But at home personally, for religious reason, my husband and I we do fasting different times of year. However, this whole ideal of like 80% rule and plant slant, we have really adapted that in our household. Um, Even with my daughter, like she eats solid foods now, but 75% of the food we feed her for meals is produce, is fruits and vegetables, and only 25% is meat. And while blue zones don't necessarily have specific numbers, strict numbers in terms of plant slant, we've been able to incorporate that with her. And then my husband and I, like, we'll have plant slant has just become part of our just normal vocabulary. Like, hey, I'm making sure I have a plant slant meal. And it was hard at first, but it has just become easier as we practice. Like, I have to shout myself out and give kudos. But right now we have a bowl of fruit with oranges and apples on our counter. And while I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but It is. And my husband told me just last night he was so happy that he has these fruits to snack on. And it just didn't start that way. It's probably been since I've worked at Blue Zone. So, yes.
And I'm also a little bit curious as well. Um, what are some strategies? Because I know you said the 80% rule. Like I know that that's like a big issue when it comes to overconsumption in today's like generation. What are
Mhm.
some strategies you feel like you would generally recommend people would use to implement the 80% rule much easier?
So, two things. So, when we work with restaurants, we one of the pledge items to encourage them to let patrons know that they can actually have to-go plates. Here in Jacksonville, a lot of our restaurants actually only serving to-go containers. And something that small, while you might say, "Oh, well, duh," but something that small actually helps people to feel like, you know what, if I don't eat everything right now, I don't have to take it with, I can take it with me. So that has actually helped to move that nudge to like, oh, you know what? I don't have to eat until I'm stuffed. Another way that kind of helps with the culture of overconsumption is Harry Bachi. I'm sorry, I'm just blanked out. Hari Hachi Boo. I just butchered that. But in one of our blue zones, they actually say that before they actually eat, and that has unconsciously helped them to actually not actually overconsume. And I think just actually having that phrase or something like that to remind yourself before you eat helps. So it's actually Hari Hachibu. My brain blanked out, but it just translates to eat until you're 80% full. So just kind of having something before you eat to reminder just kind of helps too.
I think that's a very good thing just to like generally acknowledge, like what to do, sort of steps to take and actions to take. And I like the affirmations as well, with the Hachibu.
Mhm.
I think that's a very good idea. And is there anything else you want to say about Hachibu and other practices that you would say are really important or very helpful to practice the 80% rule?
Nothing like I said, Hari Hachibu actually came is from the Okinawans. But in terms of practicing 80% rule, I would say it's a marathon and not a sprint. I know of definitely being in the South, we really believe in, or in the past, some of us grew up like I did, where you eat everything that's on your plate. And I used to, I tell people like, I love a buffet. Well, but I also realize that when I eat till I'm stuffed, I'm not the best. I do not, I'm not able to function as well. I might be sleepy. There was a lady that came to one of our events once and she said, I realized that if I don't eat it all now, I can just go back and eat it later. And while that's so simple, that was profound for me and others who were in attendance because it's just that thought like, wow, I never thought about that. Like, I don't have to eat everything right now. Like, it's not going away. I can come back. And I just think it starts kind of just with your mind and just your way of thinking.
Yeah, and I like the 80% rule since the first like thing that actually sort of motivated me to join Bluezone was that I realized like how actually like good even simple kind of steps we could take are, and like I really like the advice of the 80% rule specifically since I generally feel like just eating only like to like a certain point is where I feel like I function at the best time because like I feel like not hungry, so I don't think about food or anything. But then I also don't feel like really stuffed or full, and my brain actually has like blood being pumped to it.
No, that's really good information. And I like that. Thank you.
No problem at all. I'm curious, what motivated you as well to join Blue Zone?
So background. I have background as a social worker. My undergrad is in social work. So I've always believed in helping people, but I'm really big on sustainable change. And while I didn't have a wellness background before, one of my favorite jobs I've had is working in a grocery store. I also have a lot of experience working with employee engagement. So my current job gives me the ability to work with restaurants, work sites, and grocery stores. But just that piece of sustainable change and actually helping people to live better longer, it just resonated with me and I wanted to be a part of. part of Blue Zones.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big thing since, I think that natural and sort of that those sustainable habits that you do to keep like your general wellness are super important since, you know, you can't always rely on medication to sort of solve like the root cause of a problem.
I agree.
Sort
And
of.
I agree. And I think that for me, I don't like taking medicine. And I'm not against medicine. Have a lot of family members who are in healthcare. I'm not against medicine. I believe in medicine, I believe in science. Uh, but for me personally, I don't enjoy taking medicine for personal reasons. So, and I'm always trying to get to the root cause. And when I start doing my research, I realize for some of the conditions that I might have experienced or family members experienced that some of them are preventable. And if there's things that are preventable, I personally just like to try to work on the things that are preventable, because that works for me in my personal life. I can't speak for anybody else. Um, so for me, eating was a factor. Moving naturally was a factor. Not being as stressed out or trying to de-stress was a factor, which are all related to different concepts of blue zones.
Hmm. All right. And also, I know the one big thing about Blue Zone is the idea of like putting families first. But how do you think in like a sort of almost work and almost more like internal sort of fulfillment based culture, do we also like prioritize family and community?
So I think sometimes for people, it's hard to put loved ones first. I think sometimes we often think about it too deep. And a lot of times we live in a culture sometimes where the ideal of work comes first and then like everything else comes second. So whether that's family, whether that's your health, whether that's relaxing. And for me, one of the hardest things that people that I've encountered dealt with when it comes to this principle of blue zones, loved one first, is what does that actually mean? And I tell them it could mean whatever you want it to be. So two things. One, I tell people the people that you love are the people that love you. So it doesn't have to be your traditional family. It doesn't have to be family at all. It could be friends. It could be your coworkers that you love. But two, it doesn't have to be hard. Maybe that means before I go to work in the morning, I'm going to spend 5 minutes with my kids, or I'm going to call my mom because I haven't called her, or that friend from college, I'm going to intentionally book a trip so I can go see them, or we're going to have a phone call, or I'm going to write a letter, or I'm going to thank those people who were impactful in my life. In some of our Blue Zones communities, that meant not putting their loved ones in nursing facilities, or that meant growing in place. That meant actually having the young actually interact with the older aging individuals. So I think it's really just how to what that means to you. You don't have to think so hard about it. Um it could really just mean how you want to implement it. It could mean getting married. Um, adding actually committing to a life partner actually adds 3 years of life expectancies to your life. According to research from the Blue Zone. So just wanted to put that out there.
Wow, I like the flexibility and the sort of strategies that we can do to make our like loved ones come first. Since I feel like that's sort of like a big thing where like there's like a lot of like misdirection on like what really it means to put your own loved ones first. Is it, like spending a longer time with your own family, or is it, like commitments, etc. So I really like the idea that it's sort of like whatever you feel like, it's sort of personalized to yourself.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people, but the research of what we originally got this concept from was um the centenarians and the blue zones put their families first. And again, like I mentioned before, that meant keeping aging parents and grandparents nearby or in their home, which we know it lowered disease and mortality rates of children in the home as well. Or like I mentioned before, committing to a life partner. However, I know a lot of times here in Jacksonville or other communities, sometimes people are discouraged when they hear about people who live so far away. They feel like maybe some things aren't attainable. So I tell people to start where you are. So that might just mean making sure you're calling your loved one, or you're making a priority to have some time with your friends or family. It doesn't have to be hard, but I think you start where you are and you can start seeing positive benefits.
And I know you spoke about creating a tribe since, you were talking about friends, family, coworkers, etc. That could sort of be those like that group of like close ones you have. I'm curious, how would you say you would cultivate like your own tribe? And also, what's like your process for pruning or nurturing relationships?
So, are you asking me personally or just an example of a way?
I think, sort of both. I feel
Okay.
like I would like to know something, for someone who's very experienced with Blue Zone, what they do, and along with other examples.
So, so number one, me actually doing my right tribe is actually a work in progress. And I think evaluation for anyone at any phase of this is great, because you might meet someone tomorrow that you might want to have as part of your right tribe. So I think for one, I think it's an ongoing process. For me personally, I had to realize that some of the people that is part of my right tribe might not necessarily be people who were as close to me biologically or proximity. So I have a friend who's my best friend, but she is my best friend because one, we're like-minded individuals, but two, we are like-minded in terms of values, also in terms of having that right mentality or that positive mentality when it comes to things. She's not afraid to speak up regarding hard truths. She does it lovingly, but she's not afraid. She is not a person who will support wrong things. So kind of just having that positivity in a person's life. Also, for me personally, I attend therapy. Because through therapy, for me, this is me personally speaking, I have realized that there are some people who are good in your life for seasons, and they're good in your life for specific things, but not everyone deserves a VIP spot per se. So what I would tell people is finding your right tribe isn't something that you're just going to do instantly. I mean, there's probably a few people that you can pluck or push away a little more, and some people you can bring closer. But I think you should always be doing evaluation, but also just remembering as much as you need a right tribe around you, you should be beneficial to someone else to be part of their right tribe as well.
Sorry, my bad, I muted.
No
But
worries.
I absolutely love that kind of advice, and I really think it's important that friendships sort of feel mutual because I really feel like that's where the fulfillment really comes out of a friendship since you're giving something to someone and that sort of brings you that fulfillment and then someone else is giving it back to you so you sort of feel cared about. And I really do like that idea that you just suggested. And is there anything else you'd want to say about cultivating a right tribe or nurturing relationships?
Oh, no, I think that's so good.
Hmm. And now I'm curious. So when it comes to just tribes and people and communities, what do you really think are like the biggest challenges that you and others face when encouraging families to put loved ones first?
I think the biggest challenge that we face with encouraging families to put loved ones first um is kind of just what does that mean? Um, sometimes people take this and interpret it as, oh, well, I have to put someone over myself, or oh, I can't do anything else. I have to always do something with my family or my loved ones. And it doesn't mean that. Um, but just prioritizing those relationships is the simplest way I can put that. And prioritizing doesn't mean that you only are entertaining those relationships, but prioritizing actually means actually trying to continue to have that meaningful relationship, or just that bond based on what both parties agree to or what both parties are comfortable for. So for some people, that might mean a check in once a week or once a day. Like for instance, my husband, I think he would be upset if I didn't check in at least once a day. However, for my friend I mentioned earlier who lives in Atlanta, that might mean a yearly trip or a phone call every 6 months. So I think it's just really sometimes people just they think too deep about what that could be versus kind of just starting where they are.
That's very good. It's very good advice. I really like that. And I was gonna say something about this. I really like how you suggested that the main thing was sort of that there was a barrier. I think it was when, wait, actually, never mind. I forgot what I was gonna say. But yeah, is there anything else you want to say about this? Like challenges that people face when encouraging families with loved ones first?
No, I think that's okay.
All right. And then I was also wondering, for people that actually like want to join like Blue Zone, like what would you tell them?
So what I will tell them is first and foremost, I think the concepts of blue zones is amazing. And if they resonate with you, I feel like start implementing those principles. You don't have to pay to implement those principles. These are can be things that you just easily transition with your natural life. For example, like eating wisely. One of the superfoods is beans. A lot of the centenarians ate beans every day. Beans is something that could be fairly inexpensive or cheap. Loved ones first. That might mean writing a letter. That might mean actually saying hi to someone, moving naturally. You can dance if you're like me. You can go to the gym if you want. You can go walk outside. Or if you're driving to work, you or riding a bus, you could walk a few extra blocks. So I would just say start small and then just kind of have a snowball effect. But just see what things resonates with you first and go from there. Because no one expects you to be able to do all 9 things every day. If you're able to, great. But even for me, like there are some times where there are some pieces that I'm able to do great and consistently. There's times where it doesn't work out, but it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And if these things resonate with you and you're interested, I would just challenge everyone to just try to pick up 1 or 2 things and just try it and go from there.
Also, that's really, I like that advice. And also, I saw that you said that it's like not like you don't have to pay to implement these principles. But what's crazy is that I actually found that these principles generally are something that sort of reimburse you for following them. There's like a net positive effect, when you do them. And yeah, that's what I would say. I like the fact that these principles actually like, are typically correlate to a lot of like good outcomes that are financial, academic, etc.
And I've actually never thought about it that way. So yeah, like when we say you don't have to pay, like you're able to implement almost all of our Power Nine in some way free. But to your point, but I never thought about the idea of actually being reimbursed back. Yeah, like, hey, if you're moving naturally and you're eating better, we know that those could be medically beneficial. So maybe you're not going to the doctor as much. So if you're not going to the doctor as much, maybe you're saving on healthcare.
And
Or,
what were you gonna say?
oh no, yeah. So I never thought about that. So thank you.
No problem at all. And also, from what I know, that implementing some of these, types of values myself, such as like the 80% rule, along with natural movement, since I'm basically sometimes at time just running around campus trying to like, make sure to get all my questions asked, and also, making sure like I'm being mindful when I'm eating. I realized that it actually reimburses me sort of like back to do this because like I've noticed my GPA go up by like it was like point 0.2 or point 0.3 this like entire just semester, just like when I have implemented some of these principles, like being careful with food intake and making sure to move naturally.
Oh no, thank you for sharing that information.
And also, typically these kind of values also like the big thing about these, because I know a big thing of healthcare costs when it comes to the person themselves is surgeries and procedures. These are actually very helpful in like avoiding procedures, surgeries, etc. So they help in the long term financially.
Yeah,
Just
and I've heard some of that before too. So it's just great to just kind of hear someone else's perspective and just kind of also reinforce some of those things. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I mean, especially nowadays, in this kind of expensive healthcare environment where healthcare costs have only gone up and people have unfortunately struggled to get healthier. Like I've heard of 35-year-olds getting open heart surgery before at a hospital. So I mean, I definitely like that, we have awareness of these kind of values and it actually, feels like it's very helpful to follow these. Not just, even reasons like outside of health itself.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now let's see. I'm curious, like on values for Blue Zone and like how like impactful they are. What would you say is like one story or even a few stories if you want to say like have been like very impactful stories that have like implemented Blue Zone's values, like you've seen big impacts from them.
So I'm not going to mention this person's name. However, about a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years now, we did something called our 4-week challenge, and we kicked off our first one at the main library. And there was a gentleman that came, and he described his current health situation, and he said, "Hey, I am currently dealing with these health issues, and I'm trying to find any way to actually get better." So he heard about our 4-week challenge. He did our 4-week challenge. I just saw that gentleman a few weeks ago at a work site, and he was saying that he continued to follow the suggestions in the 4-week challenge, as well as listening to his doctor. And he has told everyone that Blue Zones has changed his life because a lot of the things that you see with the Blue Zones methodologies parallel things that our doctors tells us to do anyways. Like, hey, you should work on stress, or hey, you should eat better, or hey, you should exercise. And then you have those additional things like finding your purpose that Blue Zones, found. So that story of his just always resonates with me. And I forgot how many pounds he lost. He said he lost like 30 pounds, but it just wasn't about the weight. Like people often think that Blue Zones is just about diet and exercise, and it's so much more. But he just spoke so positively about his journey, and that just made me feel good. And every time I see him, I'm just really excited. So I saw him a few weeks ago, just randomly, and he's still following Blue Zones and he's still following the methodologies and he's seeing improvements.
Oh, I like that because I actually heard this one story from this was 2 or 3 months ago when I interviewed a cardiologist. He
Mhm.
said the one thing that he really loves is not really, when one of his procedures or a medication that he prescribes like ends up helping, save someone from a very problematic or crippling or even lethal like heart attack. It's sort of when people go and like listen to his advice, like after, they have an appointment with him, where they sort of listen to like preventative methods rather than trying to ask for procedures or medications. So I really like this idea of prevention and like health. And also yeah, that's what I was going to say because this actually reminds me of this one interview I had the other day. And another question I was going to ask was how would you say your life has been transformed by Bluezone itself?
I think, great question. So, I mean, obviously work, I work at Blue Zones, but in terms of just like the methodologies, just I mentioned earlier about my husband talking about plant slant, and I also mentioned something about my mother-in-law. I think just the ideal of trying to live long better, but also just learning about like it doesn't matter if you hit the genetic lottery, that like you can actually do things that actually can help you to live long, but not just live long, but live long healthy. So just for me, just finding things that I have been able to implement or will try to implement to create sustainable change has been meaningful to me because now I feel like I have things that are in my control for my life. And I also feel like I have a roadmap before, you hear generic things like, oh, you should eat good or oh, you should work out. But now it's like actually feeling like I have like more of a roadmap on how to do things and knowing how it could actually translate positively.
Yeah.
Um one thing I will say is so there's something called a true vitality test. It takes about 3 minutes to do. You do it, you put your email address in, and and you answer questions about your personal life, how it is today. Not how it was yesterday, not how it was last week, but today. Or in the last month, it might ask you, or the last 60 days. And I remember the first time I took that test, my score was very low and my life expectancy was kind of not where I wanted it to be. So it gives you your initial life expectancy. It also tells you how much you would probably estimate on how long you might live disease free. And then it also gives you information of what you can do to actually live better to make those changes. And I did that 1 year and then I followed up in a year and my life expectancy went up. My healthy years of disease free. Also, another thing that has actually helped transform some things based on Bluezones is the purpose workshop. So we do something called a purpose checkup, kind of like a checkup you do with your doctor. But we did a purpose checkup. And that purpose checkup, I didn't like what my numbers was. I didn't like what my numbers was. I wasn't living on purpose. But again, I waited a year and I did that same thing and my numbers increased. So just two things I had never really thought about or actually put a lot of effort into was change based on information I learned from Blue Zones.
I like that. And I heard you talk about like purpose workshops. I really like that you brought those up since you just said that previously, that a lot of people thought that Blue Zones was just about a diet and exercise, but I like how it's just like about so much more than just diet or exercise. It's also like the mental aspect, purpose, like community, etc.
Yes, and a lot of people don't know, and I found out, but if you actually know your purpose or simply putting why you wake up in the morning, you can add 7 healthy years to your life disease free. And we do purpose workshops. We do it with youth. We also do it with just different people in the community. We do it at work sites. But yeah, so that was just something that was interesting to me. The purpose workshop helps you to think about purpose. You learn what purpose is not. And at the end of the purpose workshop, you kind of draft a purpose statement to kind of put you or jumpstart you on finding what your purpose is. It's one of the best things I have led here at Blue Zones as well as attended. And every time I do attend a class or do it, I kind of check in with myself. And it's always great. So I encourage people to look on our website, bluezonesprojectjacksonville.com, see if we have one that's coming up, or if they're interested in having one, there's the event intake form that you can request to have a purpose workshop at your location.
Definitely like that. Since I like the whole thing of purpose, since, especially it helps you sort of focus and push yourself to sort of do things that, you would never naturally just go on to do. And, 7 years sounds absolutely amazing. And now, so I like the fact that you said like your whole like health metrics were changing, like, your whole like the amount of like years you were predicted to live disease free, along with like your purpose, like the test you said you took, the score you got. So what are the links again for those? Just so that the people here can know.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What are the links to the tests that you have to
Oh,
look up?
so the purpose checkup, you do that as part of the purpose workshop, but the true vitality test, let me actually see if there is a direct link to that. So the true vitality test, you can go to bluezones.com slash /en/vitality. Or a lot of times I just type in true vitality test Blue Zones in Google and that'll come up as well. It's a 3-minute test.
All right. And yeah, those are sort of like the sort of questions I wanted to ask, and I'm really like appreciative that you were able to come on and talk here since, like of course a lot of adults are, and I bet yourself included, and you especially are very busy. So thank you.
No worries. It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to see your finished product. But if you have any questions, let me know. We can talk on a different time about other things, other ways to get involved. But thank you so much for this opportunity, and you
Thank
have
you.
a great day.
Have a great day. And also, would you be able to send me the recording of this?
Yes, I will be able to send the recording. Let me stop it now. Um,